everyone, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome to, what number are we up to now? The fourth episode of our Writing Marathons series, where we are talking to authors about what I'm affectionately referring to as the slog. So this is the journey, the time, dedication, hard work it's taken to get from that initial book deal through to where they are today. And the purpose of this series is really to highlight the fact that for most authors, it's not always smooth sailing, it's not overnight success, and it's really a chance to look at the more realistic journey that you might encounter as an author yourself. So today I am thrilled to be joined by the wonderful Natali Simmonds. Natali, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. I've been really excited to talk to you, so thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So we're going to start right at the beginning, talking about when you first got a book deal and the journey that it took you to actually get published in the first place. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's not been plain sailing. It's been quite a tumultuous journey. So in 2012, I had an idea for a book. Before that, I didn't study writing at university. I'd never had anything published. In fact, I wasn't even on any social media except for Facebook. So I didn't know anything. Imagine that I'm just like your granddad or something that just doesn't even know how any of this works, but I had an idea for a book and I've always enjoyed writing. So I started to write a book, and I went on a writing course with Lorraine Mace, who's also a thriller writer. I was living on the Costa del Sol at the time, and it was me and a bunch of other writers, and there were only actually two that were under the age of like 60 or 70, and that's Emma Claire Wilson and Isabella May, who are now established writers in their own right. And that was a long time ago. It was 2015, and it gave me a taste for actually having a go and finishing my novel. And when I wrote that book, somebody I knew offered to represent me as an agent. I was like, I don't even know what an agent is, but okay, whatever. Like this is really how bad I was. And I got a deal with Accent, and it was my first book. I've got some I prepared earlier, which was The Pathkeeper. It wasn't that edition because Accent's YA imprint went down after a year, and I was left with I was signed on a trilogy on a 3-book deal, and nobody was going to get the other 2 books. So just to show you like what a kind of crazy start it was, like I fell into it, I got a book deal, that's fun, like completely green. And I'm sure there's lots of readers out there going, oh, what a cow. But I didn't get an advance, I wasn't rich or famous. And then I was left with a trilogy. I was halfway through writing with no deal. And it took 9 months to find BHC, a very small US publisher who were happy to reprint them. And that's how I ended up with the hardbacks, and they were out in the US. But again, no agent. I wrote 2 books. They didn't get anywhere, didn't get an agent with them. And then I had an epiphany in 2019. Well, no, I had a burnout. So I had a mental breakdown, which turned into an epiphany, where I read Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, I love that book. And it really connected me to what it is to be a writer. And I realized I wasn't going to be rich and famous with 1 book. Picasso didn't just do 1 painting. Dolly Parton didn't just write 1 song. The secret for me personally was be prolific. And don't chase success, whatever that looks like, just create. And from then on, my life really did change, because I just networked a lot. I wrote some manga, brand new thing for me, and that went well. I started co-writing with Jacqueline Sylvester as Cadis Knightley. I've got lots of examples with me. I wrote our saucy, vampire, witchy, paranormal romance series, which we self-published. And all these things that at the time felt like failures or like I'd settled, actually were me learning the hard way. It was like an apprenticeship. And then in 2021, I had my first thriller idea, and I completely changed genre. You can see it behind you there. I've got a poster of it here, Good Girls Die Last. And with that book, I got an agent in 3 days, a top 4 publishing deal in 3 weeks, and a TV deal. So I went from like, I don't know what YA and genre is like in 2012 to 10 years later, all my writing dreams coming true. So it's been just bonkers. Sorry, I've been talking solidly for 10 minutes, but it's been really, really not a normal path to publication whatsoever. But I got there.
That's so interesting, like the different genres that you've gone across, and the different routes that you've taken with self-publishing and being with a small press with no agent. And it's just so interesting to hear. Because like when you're thinking about traditional publishing, quite often you do think, right, there's this specific path, which is get an agent and then get a book deal and, you know, take it from there. So a lot of the time I hear, and a lot of people have actually asked me if they think that, if I think that having an agent is absolutely necessary, and if, you know, oh, I've been approached by this small press and, you know, they're happy to take me on without an agent. And I always say I recommend getting an agent just because she's like my lifeline and I can't imagine not doing this without her. I just can't imagine doing it. What would you say to someone who's asking that, as someone who has actually done that route?
I would ask that person what they want. Do they want a writing career, or do they just want to hold their book in their hand? Because people think, okay, if I can't get an agent, I'll go with a small press. And if I can't get a small press, I'll just self-publish. Those three things are three completely different career choices. And I've done all three. To self-publish means to run a business. You really need to understand how it works. You need to understand, invest as well, money, time, education in covers and in the business side of things, the advertising, algorithms, how all of that works. It's not easy. You are about 75% of the time not writing when you're self-publishing, but that's how you make your money, and you make a lot more money quicker. But you don't get to see your book in a shop window. You don't get the accolades. You don't get TV and foreign rights deals. I always wanted that. Everything I've ever done in my life, I've just wanted to get as far with it as I could. And ultimately, my dream was have an agent, get rights, be known, and have a chance of my book actually getting in the hands of readers. And that was never going to happen with a small press. And also get an advance, get paid for what you're doing, not just wait for your royalties. And you do, whether it's right or not, you do get a lot more respect when you have an agent and you get a decent deal and you start to get traction. Other authors then start to support you because they know that you're in it for the long run, that this is your career, and press and things like that. So for me, I would say, if you want a career in writing, do your best to write the very, very best book, even if that takes you 5 books, and get a bloody good agent. My agent was my dream agent, and it just fell in my lap because I hadn't even started querying, and I was so jealous of my good friend Emma Cooper and her great relationship with her agent at LBA with Amanda. I was like, one day I'll have an agent as cool as yours. And then Emma was shouting about having read a proof of my book, like before I'd started querying, and her agent saw it and said, what is this? Get Natali to contact me. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't even started yet. So, and that's after so many failed books, so and I'd be lost without her. She's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah,
I think that's really good advice to say, like, decide what it is you want out of your career, because I have so many friends who are self-published, and like, all credit to them. I couldn't do it. I think it's absolutely incredible if you can make a success of self-publishing. Personally, it's not for me, because I don't want to be doing all that extra work. I do want to be focusing on the writing side of it. So as long as you sort of know in your mind where your priorities lie, and what kind of control you want over certain aspects of your career, then any of the routes are a good route to take, but you need to make sure it's right for you. So
yeah,
that's really,
exactly.
really good advice.
And all of them don't guarantee anything. I mean, I've got friends making 30,000 a month self-publishing their books, but they can write fast. We won't talk about AI. They're not using that, thank God. I don't even know what that landscape's going to look like soon.
We won't cross that bridge.
When the robots come in. But yeah, if you're really, really fast, that's why I know established writers that are making good money self-publishing, because it doesn't matter what your route to publication is. If you write a crap book, you're just not going to have longevity in this industry. So the only thing you have full control over is how well you write.
Yeah, no, I love that. So where are you now? Let's talk a little bit about Good Girls Die Last. Obviously, it's been a really long journey to get to where you are now. How has it been since you got your agent and your book deal and everything?
It's just been bonkers, because I'm just so used to everything taking forever and writing books that get nowhere. And when I came across this idea, my background, like yours, is marketing, and I teach this approach, by the way, at Raindance Film School, pitch to product, because it applies to all storytelling. I just sat there one day, I'm not writing another book that gets nowhere, because it's just a whole year of my life. how can I approach it from a marketing perspective? And I started to do it the other way around. I wrote the elevator pitch, then the blurb, then the synopsis, ran it past all my author friends. They got so excited by the concept of Good Girls Die Last because it's just a very easy sell. It's a feminist falling down. A woman needs to cross London by foot during a heat wave because all traffic's at a standstill to get to the airport, to get to a sick mother, and there's a serial killer on the loose. And it's all in real time. It's very tense, it's very feminist. It's very real and raw. And I was very much inspired by people like Michaela Cole and writers that don't shy away from the realities of what it is to be a woman. And I knew that was actually an easy sell. So I was confident that this book would get me an agent. And I approached it really commercially. I wrote the whole book during NaNoWriMo. I watched your interview with Vicky Patterson. I know she did the same thing. But I wrote this book in a month, basically, or 6 weeks. And yeah, as I said, Amanda read it in 2 days and contacted me straight away. And she went out on sub with it and gave everyone a deadline. All the publishers had like 1 month to get back to her. So it went from, I don't know, 9 years of not knowing anything and kind of building myself up to the book idea was in August. I finished it in November. Amanda signed me in January. I got a publishing deal in April. And I got a TV series offer from STV in November. Wow. So there was literally like from finishing the novel to all of that was 1 year, and that's never happened before. And I got my agent the same week as I was shortlisted for an RNA Fantasy Award, and I was like, what? I was having like a nervous, but I didn't sleep for about 6 weeks. It was a lot. So be careful what you wish for, because it might all come on the same week. So I was, yeah. So basically everything that I'd been working towards all just came at once.
I mean, that's really, really interesting, because I don't think I've ever spoken to another author who approaches books in that way, because that's how I approach my books.
Oh, do you? Well. Like, oh my God, that's us. Brilliant.
It must be the marketing side of us. It just makes sense. But yeah, no, I'll write a pitch first and a synopsis first, and then I'll pass it around to some of my friends and to my agent, and I'll say, like, does this sound like something that's going to get picked up? Does it sound like something that's going to, satisfy the readers? And then once I've got good feedback on those things, then I know that I can start writing the novel. I never write the novel first and then do the synopsis, because I always think, at least if you're only writing the pitch and the synopsis, it's a relatively small amount of work.
3 weeks of your life, not 3 months.
Exactly. So you kind of, that you're on the right track already before you even start drafting. And I've always done it that way, and I've never spoken to anyone else who does it that way. So it must literally just be the marketing side of us. But
yeah, and I went semi-viral. I had a kind of couple of thousand shares and stuff on Twitter when I shared it. I was just on holiday and I was like, I'm just going to share my process. And some people got a bit nasty. They were like, this is so commercial. What about the art? Don't you do it for the passion? I'm like, I do it for the art and the passion, but it's also my job, and time is money. And if I can write a book really fast, because I know it's going to be easier to sell, why wouldn't I do it that way? What am I doing? Just fanning about? I haven't got time for that. So yeah, and for me, I do a full-on pitch deck on Canva.
Oh, wow, I don't quite do it that intensely.
No, mine's really visual. It's got mood boards, and it's got comps, and it's like I'm like I've gone back in time and I'm presenting to like board of directors or something. It's just how my brain works.
Yeah, no, I can actually see myself doing that. I might do that for the next one. But no, it is. And I think, again, it goes back to, what is it that you want out of your career? Do you want it to be, a commercial career? Because for me, yes, I love writing, and yes, it is about the art, but I also do want to make money with my books. I want this to be my job. I don't want to have to, rely on other sources of income. I would love to get to the point where I'm earning enough from my books that is my job. I'm just an author. So if that's what you want, then you kind of do need to look at the commercial side of it. And I don't think there's anything bad about that. I know it's a little bit taboo to talk about, like, the money side of it, but if that is what you want out of your career, then you have got to think about, how is this going to be sold?
Yeah, and I talk a lot about creative diversity, I talk a lot about it, I can't say it, creative diversity, in as much as it's okay to go wide with what you do. Just because I'm writing a thriller and that genre is going well for me doesn't mean I'm still not co-writing my paranormal romance stuff. I'm still not co-writing other ideas with other people and working on projects and stuff. And some authors I really respect, Tess Sharp, Anna Vaught, and Tony Lee, because they do that. you look at their portfolio and it's their career. They don't just do one thing. Like an actor doesn't just do action films. Sometimes they branch out into other things. Sometimes they'll sell their soul and do an ad in Japan or something that makes them a lot of money just to tide them over so they can afford to do their art house projects, you know? Yeah. And that's how I see what I do as well, in the same way.
Oh, that's really, really interesting. So when you're thinking about, you know, what project you're going to do next, what's your process there, and what are you planning on doing? Oh, do you have any plans for after Good Girls Die Last?
Yeah, it's become it's interesting now, because I feel like this is a proper job now. I've got an agent and an editor. Good Girls Die Last sold on a 1-book deal on purpose because we were hoping it would do well, and then it obviously gives you more options and you're not tied in. Headline are fantastic to work with. I love my editor as well. And the hard bit now is that this book, Good Girls Die Last, is doing really well in terms of interest. So we need to make sure the next book is the same but different, so people are getting something similar. And that's what's been a challenge for me, because ideas I'm not sure of. Sorry, like, you know, Amanda and I just brainstorm all the time. And I've wrote a second book, not a sequel, but another thriller. It was finished in September. Amanda gave me feedback. I did some more. I did a second rewrite in March. She's given me more feedback, and we're really trying to nail it, because the people that I'm working with on the television also want to know more about this second book. So I'm now thinking genre, themes, topics. Is it visual? Does it work for TV? Will it work for foreign rights? And that's the difference between writing a book before you have an agent, you're just writing for yourself, and writing it commercially. So I'm doing some edits on that second book. I've got ideas for my third thriller. I'm still working on a 4-year fantasy project, because The Pathkeeper and all that were fantasy, and I still write as NJ Simmonds, and that's going to be pretty epic, and I'm very excited about it. But I need to get into it because it's historical fantasy, so it's world building and research. It's a bit more convoluted. And then, yeah, I've still got 3 more books to go to go with the Cadis Night stuff that I write. So I'm working on 4 books at the moment.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I'm always working on at least 2, but yeah, 4 books is crazy, especially being in different genres. Although I assume that helps you because they're so different.
Yeah, and what I write with Jackie, I say we're working on it, but it'll be like a quick phone call, like we really need to get on with that. And I'm like, yeah. And then the week later we might, you know, have a meeting about it and write a few chapters. It's not like every single day I'm working on them, but as soon as they're sold, or we release the release date for the self-published stuff, then you've got a deadline, and then you are, I say 9 to 5, it's not 9 to 5, it's 6 in the morning till midnight sometimes.
Yeah.
Today I've had a real like spoiled princess day of fanning around, but other days I'm working 24/7.
So obviously you're doing fantastically now, but it was a long journey, and it was a lot of, you know, trying different things, and maybe they didn't work as well as you'd hope they would work. So how did you stick with it? How did you keep going? What were you telling yourself in that time?
Could have given up at any point. I mean, the fact that the imprint went down and they were like, no one's going to get, I could have just gone, oh, that was a nice dream. I got to hold my book, but I couldn't, because when you start to speak to your readers and realize, even if it's just 10 people out there that want more, you think, no, this is worth it. And this story lives in my head. They're like people to me, these characters, they deserve to get to live, you know? And I just had to finish what I started. I'm very much a kind of, I have to finish what I started. I'm very obsessive in that way. But then when I had my burnout in 2019, I realized I was trying to control the uncontrollable. And I really was putting all my eggs into one basket, thinking that this book is the one. That's why I went wide. And that way you can pin your hopes on more than one project at once. And you think, oh, that's not going well. Never mind. This will be the one that makes it. And maybe I'm tricking my own head a bit, but it always gives me that feeling of momentum. I've always got something to strive for, something I'm looking forward to doing. And then I don't obsess and think, oh my God, this book's not going to work, therefore I'm a failure, because I'm not a failure, because I'm still a success in other things, you know? And that's what keeps me going. And also because I told everybody I was going to be a writer, and there was no way I was going to turn around and be a failed writer. So I'll just keep going until something sticks.
I love that. I kind of feel like I did that as well, because I did a lot of I think I can't actually remember. I think I started my YouTube channel before I got my agent. So it was still very much like in that I want to be an author, so I'm going to start a YouTube channel and like document the process thing. And it was that, like, I've publicly said it now, I've told lots of people that I want to be an author, and yeah, it was really good motivation to keep going. And I love what you said about sort of focusing on the next thing, and especially when you do get to the point where you've got book deals and things, you've got deadlines and you're constantly thinking about the next project. I spoke to Sarah Bonner about this recently, and saying about, like, you're constantly thinking about the next thing. But that can be a really good thing, because it can mean you don't have time to focus on, you know, how the last book's doing, because you've just got to focus on the next thing.
Yeah, and the next thing's always better. It's always the best
Yeah.
thing you've ever done. Well, it is for me anyway. They're like, oh, what's your best book? It's always the one I'm writing right now. And to be honest, it probably is, because you're only ever going to get better anyway. And then they say, oh, I've started reading the first book. Like, don't read the first thing I ever did. Read the latest thing I've done.
People say to me, oh, I'm reading your debut. I'm like, no, read the second one.
That was the test pancake. This one's really good. This is what everyone's talking about. So, but they are all good. Obviously, they wouldn't have got published if they're not. But, you know, I think no artist has ever done. And you have to always be trying something new. And you see people that are really successful. You know, like I say, Dolly Parton, and she's teaming up with James Patterson, was it, to write a book? And why not? And she's doing charity stuff, and she's done movies, and you just think, good, you're still telling your story. And I want to be, I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to be an actress or anything, but I don't ever want to feel limited or pigeonholed. All I do for a living is tell stories. I did it through marketing. I've done it. And another thing is, through my job in the past, I was a kind of coordinator in marketing. I was account director, so I managed like 30 different campaigns for 30 different brands, helping them tell their stories. And I still do that now as my freelance stuff. I have more than one client, and that's how my brain works. I haven't been diagnosed with anything. I'm sure there's an ADHD thing there somewhere. My daughter is dyslexic and ADHD, so that's how my brain works. And people get panicking. They go, calm down, you've got too much on. I'm like, no, you don't understand. If I've only got one thing to do, I'm going to really have a mental breakdown over this one thing. If I have 20 things to do, my panic gets diluted. So that's just me.
No, I do understand that. I feel like you and I are quite similar in our sort of mindsets and everything, because I'm constantly, like, people say to me, well, you know, how do you do the YouTube videos, and then you write your books, and you're doing like other sort of secret projects, and then you've got your day job as well. I'm like, I need all of those things, because if I've only got one thing, I get like really antsy about it. So no, I completely get that. So just before we finish off, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your sort of any advice that you could give to an aspiring author, because most people watching this or listening to this will be sort of writing their first book, or maybe starting to query agents. So to someone who's watching this video, what advice would you give?
Just don't limit yourself. See yourself as the art. I know this sounds really poncy, but you are building your own brand. You are the art that you create. People invest in you. People will say, oh my God, I love this book, so therefore I'll read that book. So you don't panic about, oh, I have to choose one genre, or I can't get into manga because then I'll never be able to do my self-published romance books, or, you know, well, I'm writing for children, but I also want to write sexy stuff. Like, you can change your pen name, you can change anything that you do, anything you want to do, have a go at it. Co-write with people, and network, and go out there and build your brand and get people invested in you. Because ultimately, if you want a long-term career, it's you that people will be buying, not just one book. Your career is not one book ever.
I love that. That's such a good piece of advice. Thank you so much, Natali, for joining us today. And I'm sure that everyone will find your story so inspiring, because you have just done incredibly well. And as I said before we started recording, but I am in the middle of listening to Good Girls Die Last. I didn't quite get to finish it before this call, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I can't wait to see how your career is going to take off. I will make sure to leave all of the links and everything of where you can buy Natali's books, and website and social media and everything down below, so do go check her out. And thank you so much, Natali.
Wonderful, thank you very much.